The moment I saw my name missing from the Thanksgiving table, I knew my family had already replaced me. Not metaphorically, literally. My chair, the one I had sat in every Thanksgiving since I was a child, was gone. In its place sat my younger brother, Ryan's new girlfriend, Megan. I stood in the doorway holding the pie I had spent 3 hours making, while everyone laughed like nothing had happened. Mom looked at me and smiled awkwardly. "Oh, honey, we thought you wouldn't mind." "Wouldn't mind?" I looked around the table. Dad was carving the turkey. Ryan was showing Megan pictures on his phone. My sister Claire was whispering something into her husband's ear. Nobody looked embarrassed. Nobody apologized. I slowly placed the pie on the kitchen counter. "I'm not staying," I said. Mom sighed. "Don't make this dramatic." I almost laughed. For years, I had been the person holding this family together. I paid the Thanksgiving venue deposit every year. I arranged the catering. I handled the invitations. I even maintained the private family account Dad had created years ago to pay for major family events. And there was one more thing they didn't know. The Thanksgiving house everyone was sitting in, it wasn't Dad's. It was mine. 3 years earlier, when the bank threatened foreclosure, I quietly bought the property through my company. Dad thought the house still belonged to him. I never corrected him. I wanted him to keep his dignity. But now, standing there while my own family treated me like a stranger, something inside me finally broke. I walked toward the door. Ryan smirked. "Seriously? You're leaving because your chair got moved?" I turned around. "No." I looked directly at him. "I'm leaving because I finally understand my place in this family." Then I walked out. Nobody followed me. Nobody knew that before I reached my car, I had already made the first phone call. And by tomorrow morning, Thanksgiving would no longer belong to them. It would belong to the people they had completely forgotten about. Me. And I wasn't angry enough to scream. I was calm enough to cancel everything. That night, I sat alone in my apartment with my phone on the table. I stared at the family group chat. Messages were already coming in. Ryan had posted pictures from dinner. "Best Thanksgiving ever." Claire replied with 3 heart emojis. Mom wrote, "So grateful for family." I almost choked on my coffee. Then Dad sent a message. "Same time next year?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop. The first thing I canceled was the catering contract. The second was the private event reservation for Christmas. The third was the family vacation they had been planning for months. All of it was connected to accounts I controlled. None of them knew. For years, they assumed Dad paid for everything. The truth was very different. After my business became successful, I created a private family fund. I never told them because I didn't want praise. I wanted to help. Every birthday dinner, every holiday, every family trip, every emergency. I paid for more than they realized. And somehow, the moment I stopped being useful, they stopped seeing me as family. The next morning, Mom called. "Why did the restaurant say our Christmas reservation was canceled?" "I canceled it." Silence. "What?" "I won't be paying for it anymore." Mom's voice became cold. "You're being childish." "No, Mom. I'm being honest." She hung up. Then Ryan called. "You canceled our vacation?" "Yes." "You can't do that." I leaned back in my chair. "Apparently I can." He started yelling. "You're ruining everything." I calmly answered. "I didn't ruin anything, Ryan. I simply stopped funding it." There was silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You've always been selfish." I smiled sadly. "Maybe you're right." I ended the call. But I wasn't finished. There was still one thing they hadn't discovered. The Thanksgiving house. That afternoon, I contacted my attorney. "I want the property returned to my company immediately." He understood. "You're sure?" I looked at the old family photo sitting on my desk. Everyone was smiling. I used to think that picture represented love. Now I realized it represented a time when they still needed me. "I'm sure." The next morning, the paperwork was ready. And when my family opened their doors that weekend, they were going to discover who actually owned the house. Saturday morning, Dad called me. His voice sounded different. Not angry. Worried. "Your mother says there's a problem with the house." I looked out my window. "What kind of problem?" "The lawyer says we need to leave." I didn't answer. Dad became impatient. "Did you know about this?" "Yes." Silence. "You did this." "I made a decision. This is our home." "No, Dad." I took a breath. "It hasn't been your home for 3 years." He didn't understand, so I explained everything. When the bank threatened foreclosure, I bought the property. I paid every bill. I paid the taxes. I paid for the renovations. I even paid the mortgage they thought Dad was still paying. I had never told them because I didn't want them to feel ashamed. Dad's voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I thought we were family." That sentence destroyed the silence between us. A few minutes later, Mom called. She wasn't angry anymore. She was terrified. "Please don't do this." I closed my eyes. "Mom, you replaced me at Thanksgiving. We made a mistake." "No, you made a choice." She started crying. "I didn't realize how much you did for us." That was the problem. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I wanted them to understand what their actions had cost. Then Ryan showed up at my apartment. He looked furious. "You've gone too far." I opened the door, but didn't invite him inside. "You thought I was nothing because I wasn't sitting at the table. That doesn't mean you take away our home. It was never your home." His face went pale. Then he whispered, "What do you want?" Finally, the question I had been waiting for. "I don't want your money. I don't want an apology. I don't even want you to beg." I looked him directly in the eyes. "I want you to understand that people aren't disposable." Ryan looked down. For the first time, he had nothing to say. Then Dad arrived behind him. He looked exhausted. "I owe you an apology," he said. I nodded. "But an apology doesn't fix everything." Dad swallowed. "What happens now?" I looked toward the street. "Now you find out what life looks like when you stop treating the person holding everything together like they don't matter." And I closed the door. But I hadn't decided what I would do with the house yet. 3 weeks passed. I didn't speak to my family. For the first time in years, I wasn't paying their bills, arranging their holidays, or fixing problems they created. And strangely, I felt free. Then one afternoon, Dad came to see me. He wasn't angry. He wasn't demanding anything. He simply stood at my door holding an old photograph. It was a picture of our family from my first Thanksgiving. I was sitting between Mom and Dad. Dad smiled sadly. "We were happy then." "Yes," I said. "We forgot something." I waited. "You were the one who kept us together." I looked away. Dad continued. "We treated you like an employee instead of our daughter." That hurt more than I expected, but I didn't let him see it. "What do you want, Dad?" "Nothing." He handed me the photograph. "I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry." For the first time, I believed him. I didn't give the house back. I didn't restore the vacation. I didn't restart the family fund. Those things were over. But I made one final decision. I offered my parents a small apartment nearby. I paid the first month's rent, not because they deserved it, because I didn't want revenge to turn me into someone I didn't recognize. Ryan and Claire received nothing. They had to rebuild their own lives. And maybe that was the real lesson. A month later, Thanksgiving came again. This time, I hosted dinner at my own home. There were only 6 people at the table. Friends. People who had stayed when they had nothing to gain. No one replaced my chair. No one treated me like an afterthought. Before dinner, I looked around the table and realized something. I hadn't lost my family. I had lost the version of them that only loved what I could provide. And that was painful. But it was also freedom. My family thought replacing me would make me disappear. Instead, it made me finally understand my worth. They never knew I controlled the house. They never knew I paid for their holidays. They never knew I could cancel everything with one phone call. But the biggest thing they never knew? I never needed any of it to feel powerful. I only needed to stop giving my power away. And that Thanksgiving, for the first time in my life, I finally saved a seat for myself.